What do we got? Music news.
Music news. I want to start music news with a local music news story. This week I was, just sitting by the fire, having a cup of tea, reading my front page, like I'm on a front page newspaper.
Debating on texting Jeff Coffin.
Yeah, and I got to the story here. New guitars donated to Martin Road Elementary. The story is Richard Rogenmoser. I think I know that guy.
He's a big jerk.
He is. He's mean. He makes me go back to his store all the time because he forgets stuff. Of the Music Exchange recently donated 2 Fender acoustic guitars to Martin Road Elementary School. And the story goes on to talk about how the kids are now using them in the music program, and they're really enjoying them. And the principal, Jared Taft, said this is the kind of gesture is wonderful and an example of support of the music program and wonderful for our district.
Yeah, and I appreciate you digging that out for music news. Lisa Mikowski, friend, who was on the show, ran for school board, and we made the donations on behalf of the show. Of course, you were there for the donations to the guitars. And want to thank Lisa and want to thank the principal and the paper for writing that up. That's very nice.
And then also in music news, I knew that this would spark you because you bring this up all the time. Recently, Elton John said songwriters today are pretty awful. That's the quote.
Oh, that's good.
He said, British singer Elton John described today's songwriters as pretty awful. Pop music is as uninspiring and talent shows. American Idol are boring, and he just thinks that everything sounds the same today. He said, he was asked to do American Idol. I didn't know that.
As a judge?
Yeah, as a judge. I read this in this here. He says, I'm not a fan of talent shows. I probably wouldn't have lasted if I'd gone on one. I was asked to judge American Idol. I couldn't do it because I would not slag anyone off.
I can understand that. I'm glad he came out and said that. I'm glad he said it as bluntly as he did because it's the truth. Modern music is horrible.
He says it's uninspiring.
I totally agree with him.
Everything sounds the same.
And somebody like Sir Elton John has, he can say stuff like this and make people listen. I don't know why either. Record companies are not as powerful as they used to be.
No.
Record contracts are not being doled out like they used to be. Record distribution isn't what it used to be. Most of it's done on CD Baby or iTunes. I don't understand, unless we have just so homogenized artists to the point where they just don't get it. I mean, maybe the reality show generations, I don't know. What is your take on it? I mean,
No, I think it does all sound the same. A lot of this, it's more of not...
We had Ron Hawkins on, who's a great wordsmith. Dave Matthews, great musician, great wordsmith. Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Neil Young. I mean, we can keep going.
Yeah.
All of those artists, there isn't one artist that we've named that's come out in the last 20 years. These guys have been kicking around for a long time.
Yeah, and it seems like today it's not more of, a brand of the actual musician. It's the actual music, and they're just throwing musicians, hey, play this, and then...
Yeah.
So it feels like everyone's just playing the same stuff.
It's like the subsonic droning techno beat. It's like every song is made to be played at some stupid store in the mall.
I know.
Don't you think?
It is.
I mean, it really
exactly
is. It's like dumb droning music that should be on when I'm in Hollister.
That's exactly. You go to Hollister?
I do. I love it there because I thought it was more of a fun house because it's real dark in there.
Because it's dark, you didn't know what was going on, and you just hear.
You know my opinion about malls and everything else.
I know.
I haven't been to a mall since 1974.
I can tell. I think you've been wearing the same thing since 1974.
I have kids though, so I do at Christmas time. Unfortunately, I have to go. So yes, I've been to a Hollister.
All right, continuing with music news, U2 is working on a new album. The thing that I find interesting about this is they're working with a producer named Danger Mouse. He is a pop producer. He's produced such albums as Jay-Z and Gnarls Barkley. They are going to begin working with him on a new album that's going to be coming out hopefully in 2011, right around the time that their tour begins next year.
So they're going to a hip-hop producer.
Yeah, and I see that's kind of, I don't know. They worked with Steve Lillywhite a lot. I know, and I'm a big fan of Steve Lillywhite.
They have the ability to do whatever they want to do. I remember at times in the 80s, the Stones were mocked for some of the decisions they made. The Emotional Rescue album, they were completely mocked. And the Stones have gone disco. So I think U2's been around long enough that they write their own score. They write, how the history.
I'm interested to see how that works because
U2 is a strange band, and I don't consider myself a U2 fan, but I consider them to be a great band.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I feel. I used to be pretty big into U2, sort of, lost it.
He's a pretty brilliant lyricist. He's a pretty good writer.
He is, especially when he can. Who else can count in Spanish and not even count the right numbers? There's that song where uno, dos, tres, catorce. He goes 1, 2, 3, 14. How does that work?
Yeah, well, he's mono.
All right, another album that's going to be coming out, which I think is going to be really cool. The Cars are reuniting after 23 years to record a new album. They're recording it upstate, actually, in Millbrook, New York. And it should be out. Another one that is supposed to be coming out in 2011. And they split up in 1988, and this will be their first
that's great.
Since.
So Rick Ocasek, all the guys back together?
Yeah, they're all back together, and they're going to
I can't remember the guitar players. It escapes me right now. Their guitar players, he was brilliant.
I have it written down. Greg, no, that's keyboardist. Elliot Easton.
Elliot Easton.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a brilliant guitar player. He really, really was a brilliant guitar player. I liked him a lot. Well, folks, once again, we're at the end of another Heard It on the X show. I want to thank Jason Bonham for joining us. Don't forget, next week we have Jeff Coffin.
Very excited.
Heard It on the X radioshow.com to answer any questions that you want to send us. Answer our Do You Think It's Okay segment. And we'll see you next week. Remember, folks, if you heard it on the X. I heard it on the X.